No, darlings, Veronica Starr here, secret agent, heartbreaker, and defender of the galaxy. But tonight, I'm taking a brief sabbatical from saving worlds to bring you a different kind of danger. Little Gem is a sample from Evasive Love, L.J. Longo's newest novel, first unleashed on an unsuspecting universe through Alora's Cave, and now gloriously reborn through Evernight Publishing. Expect morally grey bounty hunters, handsome scientists on the run, and enough sexual tension to make even me blush. Pour yourself a drink, lock the doors, and let's dive into a sexy cocktail of bad decisions and worse luck. Thank me later.
Prologue. Officer K. Griffiths reporting in on December 13th, about 2250 Empire time. Kavan Griffiths kept his eye on the fugitive sitting on the floor of his Volex as he spoke into the radio. The criminal, a stringy man with a beard bigger than his stringy body could get away with, looked relieved when he heard the word officer. Kavan didn't blame him. There was very little in Kavan's appearance that would be comforting to a man wanted dead by the Empire Sector's mob. Kavan was a big man, shaved head, arms covered with tattoos that meant nothing to anyone but him. Since he only wore jeans and t-shirts, never the official uniform, he looked more like a thug than an officer of the Intersectoral Police. He spoke like one, too. That's about 4 a.m. for you fuckers at home. Officer Walter Morgan receiving. Morgan spoke with the crisp and formal dialect of the Albion sector. Carry on, Kay. I have in custody Louis Hollander, and I'm bringing him to the nearest ISP station. Kavan glanced at the Volex's console. The autopilot was functioning fine, and the map showed his Volex about to cross onto the land at the edge of the American continent. Can you let the Empire Station know, so his records will be ready? What am I, your bloody secretary? Even Morgan, the most stringent officer Kavan had worked with, got friendly near the end of his overnight shifts. Kavan smirked a little because he heard Morgan typing the notice by hand. Morgan was strict Albion and didn't trust anything he couldn't do by hand. He only typed because intersectoral protocol would not allow anyone to handwrite records the way they did in Albion, and Morgan's department would not pay for the digital handwriting transcribers. Most of the other ISP officers used vocal recorders to the point where basic spelling on handwritten reports was a problem. Some of the more tech-savvy officers used cybernetic links to do all their record-keeping, but metalheads frightened Kavan. He said, "Just don't want the call to be traced." "I know, you're also bloody paranoid," the other officer muttered. "There, done. Is there anything else I can do for you, sir? Perhaps you'd like a warm cup of tea when you come to port." "You know I don't drink tea, Walt." Kavan leaned back in his chair. "You'll never guess where I found him." "Ah," Morgan said. "This is one of those calls." Kavan glanced around the barren Volex as he talked to Morgan. The benches lining the oval of the helm were plain metal without cushions. The engine churned in the hull of the flying machine, and because he didn't bother with insulation, he could feel the vibrations under his feet. He didn't have a sun shield for the clear plexi, so he could see the stars overhead as he flew. "He was working in the Taj Mahal?" Morgan asked after a pause. "The one on the Empire shore, or in Persia?" "There's one in Empire?" Kavan replied. "Indeed, one of those underwater relics of, what was it called? Atlantic City. One of those places where the ocean swamped a beach town and they saved the attractions instead of the people." Kavan snorted. "Tell me about Under Albion again. Isn't the Queen still fighting old London's mole people?" "Right. So you found Hollander in Persia working in the Taj Mahal?" "Alexis Medlin had him." He heard the silence on the other end, then the quiet statement. "And you took him from her?" Yep, Kavan said. She was going to turn him into the highest bidder. That man should be kissing your boots. Oh, he's happy about it, Kavan said to the fugitive. Aren't you, Louis? Jumping like a bunny from joy. The fugitive said nothing. Kavan added, because you were wanted dead. How did you get him off Alexis Medlin? Morgan asked. I got to him first, Kavan replied. Doesn't matter, I saw her on his scent and she broke into his house while I was arresting him on the street outside. Morgan chuckled. She's going to cause trouble for you someday, Kay. You should be careful. I'll do her a good turn and she'll forgive me. The Volex hummed as it descended and slowed. The beast is landing. I'll call you to gloat later. Maybe go for a beer. Morgan scoffed. I wouldn't dream of drinking beer with you. I'll meet you for a scotch then. How's 1900 Albion time? That was only 4 p.m. his time, but Kavan didn't care. Sure, meet at the station? Certainly. Kavan pressed the button to silence the radio and looked out the plexi. He could see only darkness, not the comforting light of a police station roof. According to his altitude, he should have been able to see the trash or the rooftop. Instead, he saw only a dark, grassy lot. He double-checked the coordinates. The autopilot confirmed in bright lettering that their destination was a place called Montgomery Park, and not the Intersectoral Police Station. Fuck. What's wrong? The fugitive asked. That bitch. Kavan took the Volex out of the autopilot, but it was too late. The beast was already landing. Kavan didn't have the technical know-how to battle with a machine complicated enough to circle the planet in a few hours. How the fuck did she get into my Volex? Oh, what's going on? Am I still safe? The fugitive babbled while Kavan walked over to him. Without hesitating, Kavan hoisted the man over one shoulder, carried him into the head to hide him from whoever Alexis had on the ground waiting. As soon as Kavan opened the door to the little bathroom, a laser gun fired. He closed his eyes against the flashing light. The skin tingled at the heat. The man over his shoulder went limp. Kavan opened his eyes to see the hole bored into Louis Hollander's skull. I get in by not leaving, Cav. Alexis Medlin pushed the door the rest of the way open with the barrel of the laser gun. She wore tight black leggings designed for acrobats in the Cirque sector, where she officially lived. That was why a delicate harlequin's face paint coated her broad features. Kavan rarely saw her without white makeup, colorful daggers painted around her eyes. Her shirts were always cut low, her shorts were always cut high, and her hair was always purple. Kavan looked at the corpse over his shoulder. You fucking bitch! Stop stealing my kills, she said, capping the laser and stuffing the gun into her belt. She fished the Biotech out of her shirt. It was a little cell embellished with the latest innovations. Kavan could see where it would project a 3-dimensional image, where it could connect directly to a Volex console, and where it folded out into God knows what. He guessed it cost about what Hollander was worth, dead or alive. Alexis pressed a button and spoke in a chipper, childlike tone. I got Louis. Under the laws of his sector, he should have had a trial, Alexis. Kavan stepped out of her way when she walked past him into the Volex. Murder, assault, robbery. Alexis tugged off a glove, showing her brown skin, and then took out a pot of face paint from another hidden pocket. She patted the white makeup around her cheeks and mouth. Sounds like he wanted a trial. Kavan put the body down. Am I still safe? Those were the dead man's last words. Christ, what if he wasn't the right... You know he was the right man or you wouldn't have arrested him, Alexis replied, and you knew he was guilty or you wouldn't have hunted him. Besides, I wouldn't worry about him. I'd worry about them. She gestured with her paint pot to the darkness outside his Volex. Kavan saw the men standing outside the windows. A couple of them wore pinstripe suits and bowlers. They were all physically powerful men with short cropped hair, tattoos, and stony expressions, that said they were ready to kill. Kavan had the brief thought that this look was a kind of uniform that crossed the cultures of the sectors, a uniform he wore too. All of them were pointing automatic rifles at him. Not that the bullets would get past the plexi, but it was still an unnerving sight. "You're delivering to the Dons?" "Of course we are," she said. "The Dons pay better, partner." "Fuck," he muttered. "Now don't go all tumbling, Kavan. They'll shoot you for a wild tiger if you cause trouble." She walked past him to the council and opened the hatch in the floor. "I'll fill out all the paperwork from my end in the Empire. Your half of the bounty will come in the mail. That way you'll only have a little to explain to your precious supervisors at the ISP. I'm sure your drinking pal will be able to fix everything up for you. And if he doesn't..." She looked over her shoulder and winked. "I'll do you a good turn every now and then, little brother." Chapter 1. The suicide bacteria has claimed another victim in the Torres sector. That brings the death toll of this new drug to 35 souls. Elliot Grayson sat before a mirror trying to tame the brown curls of his hair with pomade when the news broadcast distracted him. He looked at the projection on the bare wall from the handheld screen Rabbit had given him. The screen was less than a year old, though Rabbit had forsaken it for a newer version. Elliot had never figured out how to align the projection with the bare patch on the wall, so a bookshelf distorted the Albion reporter's skirt and boots. The intersectoral police are warning even the most casual brush with these bacteria can lead to hallucinations so fearful that the infected person commits suicide to escape them. Though the reporter was surrounded by the pseudo-jungles of Torres, though she had replaced the petticoats and hoops, the corsets, and the modest high collars of Albion with a plain brown and white frock, there was no mistaking her crisp diction. The ISP are displaying this report through Torres and other sectors where this particularly nasty strain of the bacteria has reared its ugly head. "Elliot, are you out there still?" Elliot startled. He was sitting at the edge of a double bed, not more than a few feet from the bathroom, but he had not heard Rabbit finish showering. "Elliot!" He answered, "Course I am. Where else would I be?" Rabbit chuckled from behind the door, then said, "Be a good lad and get me a towel." Elliot rolled his eyes, mostly at the lad. Rabbit wasn't from Albion. He worked very hard to erase all traces of whatever place had birthed him, but now and again he tried out the words of Albion just to see how poorly they mixed with his gravelly voice. Elliot shrank the projection and watched the broadcast on the handheld screen as he went to the linen closet and picked out a towel. The ISP officer from Torres was speaking in Castiliano. Elliot read the translated text underneath. "If you encounter someone who is infected by these bacteria, call the authorities immediately. Do not attempt to detain the infected yourself, as this strain is highly contagious. Try to keep..." Elliot silenced the feed by folding the screen and tucking it into the pocket of his rose-colored vest. He carried the towel to their bathroom, looking at the steam curling out from under the door. Elliot had a theory that Rabbit originated in a real jungle and could only be comfortable while naked in steaming heat. Elliot opened the door and the oppressive steam dampened his fine beige suit and his rose cravat. He caught sight of the clouded mirror, but he could see only the faint image of his light brown curls and his slender body filling the suit jacket, reflecting in the fog. "What were you watching?" Rabbit stood in the open stall, the steam pouring out from behind him. He reached his hand for the towel. "Oh, just the gossip around Albion," Elliot answered. He did have an Albion accent, and it only became more pronounced the longer he stayed away. Rabbit buried his face into the towel, which he then rubbed over his black and gray hair. He appeared unashamed of his nakedness, of the strong muscles hiding beneath the pudginess of his body. Sounds like someone from Torres. Well, Elliot answered. Rabbit spoke Castellano, but he probably had heard only the faintest traces of it through the door. We Albions do occasionally take an interest in the outside world. As Elliot turned to quit the steaming room, Rabbit dropped a hand on his neck. The fingers drifted down to Elliot's shoulder and chest, passionless seduction. When his hands dipped into the pocket of Elliot's rose vest, it was a theft. Elliot didn't try to take the device back, as Rabbit flipped open the screen and restored the feed's sound. The Albion reporter was speaking again. Try to keep infected persons isolated and away from tools they may use to harm themselves. If one finds oneself infected by this drug, call the emergency services at once. It is then advised for one to tie down, lock oneself in a closet without any tools. Hallucination lasts between 15 and 30 minutes and can be quiet, terrifying. Rabbit nonchalantly folded the screen and handed it back. Why are you looking up information about strains of wild bacteria? I was curious if it was mine. Elliot stood back against the wall, giving Rabbit room to exit the bathroom and enter the master bedroom they shared. Out of the corner of his eye, he could see the black suit and crisp white shirt he had laid out on the bed for Rabbit. Sounds like the particularly nasty mistake you asked me to keep making. I told you I didn't distribute it. Rabbit made no move toward the dry air outside, just ruffled the towel through his salt and pepper hair. Why don't you take my word for it? The question appeared innocent enough, and his tone stayed even, but Elliot grew wary. He did not look up from his hands stuck into the small pockets of his vest. It is the same symptoms, the same length of hallucination even. Rabbit snorted, shrugged, and walked past him into the cool air of the master bedroom. Elliot added almost offhandedly, though I suppose someone could have taken the recipe from my laboratory, or even a sample. A housekeeper, perhaps. Rabbit turned sharply, offended by the suggestion. For the first time that day, he looked into Elliot's face. No one broke into the security of my compound. Of course not, Elliot replied agreeably. He had cornered Rabbit, which was not necessarily a good idea. So you must have distributed it. Elliot watched carefully for signs of danger. He saw the flare of Rabbit's nostrils, the hard squint, but not the reddening of his face. Still, the man closed the distance between them in one step and grabbed Elliot by the lapel of his vest, straining the gold buttons. You should have been grateful enough to take my word. You promised! Elliot lifted his hands to Rabbit's fists, and the man's grip softened, and the anger drained out of him again. Rabbit made many promises that he didn't always keep. Elliot pressed his back into the doorway between the still steaming bathroom and the bedroom. You promised me when that woman... Elliot didn't like to speak about it. The test subject believed a devil was attacking her, was raping her, and had impregnated her. She broke a window, and when they stopped her from leaping to her death, she took a shard of the broken glass and stabbed herself in the stomach to save the world from the devil's spawn. Elliot ran a hand through his hair and continued, When that woman died, you said you would not distribute. Elliot, sweetheart. Rabbit slithered nearer again and caressed Elliot's cheek with his open palm. That was only one test subject. It was an isolated case. 1 in 10 test subjects, Elliot replied. That's 10%. Did you distribute to over 300 people because 35 are dead? Rabbit's hand clutched at Elliot's chin harder, forcing him to meet his gaze. Then his hand softened again. Elliot, she had a bad reaction to a drug. Then we destroyed it. We did the right thing, And now, by sheer coincidence, another bacterial strain is causing the same bad reactions, probably ordered from the same client. Elliot glanced down when Rabbit's other hand plucked gently at the collar of his vest. Rabbit's hands were a soft tan on the rose fabric, his fingers troubling his buttons. His voice was very calming. "Elliot, have I told you lately how good you look in pink?" "It's rose. There's a difference," Elliot replied. "And don't try to change the subject or distract me." "Distract you? Who's distracting you?" Elliot returned his eyes to Rabbit's face, while the other man's fingers traveled over his vest. The touch was so distant through his clothing, and the promise of those hands on his skin was almost enough to soothe his fears. Elliot tried to pull himself back. "Darling, please, don't treat this casually." "I'll treat it for what it is." Rabbit leaned over him, rubbing his nose through Elliot's hair and breathing deeply. Elliot, without thinking, mimicked him and folded closer to Rabbit's body, taking in the clean scent of his newly washed skin, the tangy heat of his arms circling him. "Unnecessary drama you've created." "I didn't mean to." Elliot slipped away, falling for the trick, the strong hand sliding under his jacket, then into his pants, were too gentle to be dangerous. He was distracted by the fingers gripping hard at the muscles of his ass. "Have I been neglecting you?" Rabbit's voice had a deep rasp of a smoker, as if a handful of pebbles turned around in his throat, filtering his words. "Are you trying to get my attention, Ellie? Wearing this lovely pink and throwing your brilliance in my face?" Elliot smiled, pleased by the compliments, by the purring voice in his ears. Not for the first time he saw his fear giving in to lust, the threat of danger slipping into a playful seduction. He knew he had lost, but he kept trying to make a point. "Rabbit, 35 people are dead, and I don't like that I've had a part of." "No one knows you manufacture this. No one even knows you exist," Rabbit answered, and his grip tightened. His embrace was suddenly too hard, too hot, a thinly veiled threat. Then just as quickly he relaxed. His hands were massaging gently. He pressed soft kisses against Elliot's cheek. "You're totally safe and protected, Ellie." "Darling," Elliot said softly, not allowing Rabbit to forget his intentions. "I recognize the microscope sample in the report. If you distribute that strain again, I will leave you." Rabbit chuckled at the idea that the slight man beneath his hands had any power to do something that displeased him. He kissed his neck again and said with disgusting cheerfulness, "You wouldn't survive it."
Darlings, we hope you've enjoyed that little sip of poison from L.J. Longo's latest novel, Evasive Love. If you want the full cocktail, shaken, stirred, and served steaming hot, you'll have to snag the ebook itself, newly released from Evernight Publishing. Trust me, this book is exactly like I Like My Men, darker, twice as dangerous, and too explicit for radio. That's were made. Until next time, this is Veronica Starr, signing off. Stay wicked, stay wild, and even if you can't save the galaxy, enjoy seduction worth the... Sorry, what? What do you mean they have their own outro? Oh, that's adorable. Well, that's another world saved, doomed, and or slightly weirder than we found it. Either way, you made it.
And when you're ready to plunge back into the abyss, we'll be here, lurking, whispering.
If you liked today's episode, tell a friend. If you hated today's episode, tell them.
You can find us on Substack, YouTube, or wherever you scream into the void about podcasts. Drop us a comment. Send us your thoughts in all caps. We love that. You're charming.
And hey, if you want to help keep these stories weird and our tea hot, you can throw some coins our way on Substack. It keeps the lights on. Literally, Lane is writing in the dark.
Paperback Radio, no ads, professional narrators, and humanish weirdos telling you strange tales week after week. After week, after week, after week.
We told you to stay in the back room, Lizzie.
Ah.
Thanks for wandering through the chaos with Paperback Radio.
See you next time.